Everyone talks about Rome like it was marble, marching legions, and peak civilization until you look closer. Peel back the marble and you do not find noble speeches and spotless togas, but communal butt sponges, flaming pigs on the battlefield, urine toothpaste, and emperors who treated reality as a polite suggestion. Today we are stepping into the real Rome, the one your school textbook politely ignored. The one filled with bizarre medical ideas, extravagant food choices, unusual beauty rituals, and emperors who sometimes forgot they were meant to be ruling an empire, not starring in their own theater production. So, to begin, let's start with what Romans believe made the perfect performance boosting sports drink, Roman energy drink. Believe it or not, Roman athletes genuinely believed boiled pig dung mixed with vinegar could boost their athletic performance. Medical theory at the time suggested that animal poo held leftover vital energy from digestion. So, if a pig had strength, stamina, and heat while it was alive, a little pig powered poo brew might pass that on. And when you are a gladiator fighting for survival, you do not question the recipe. You drink what the physician gives you and hope it works. It might sound disgusting to us, but to them, this was cutting-edge sports science. And hey, Rome did conquer half the known world after all, so clearly confidence levels were high. And if this makes you feel a little queasy, just wait until you hear what they used to whiten their teeth. Tooth whitening with urine. Roman dental care might sound positively insane to us today, but to them it made perfect sense. To achieve bright, clean teeth, many Romans used urine as a mouth rinse and whitening agent. At the time, it was understood that urine contained powerful cleansing properties, particularly thanks to the ammonia, which helped remove stains and freshen the mouth. And when appearance and hygiene were tied to status, you followed the recommendations of those who claimed to know best. Imported Portuguese urine was even considered superior, meaning wealthier Romans paid extra for what they believed was the premium product. From a modern perspective, it sounds unpleasant, but in their world, this was practical, effective, and socially accepted hygiene. And if swishing urine around your mouth feels difficult to imagine, the way Romans handled the rest of their bathroom routine may leave you even more unsettled. The shared sponge toilets. Roman public toilets were a source of civic pride, with flowing water systems and long benches where people sat side by side. However, toilet paper did not exist, so instead, Romans relied on a shared sponge on a stick known as the tersorium. After use, the sponge was rinsed in a bucket of salt or vinegar water and then returned for the next person. To Romans, this system seemed efficient and hygienic. Vinegar and salt were considered effective disinfectants, and the idea of reusable cleaning materials fit naturally within their public bathing culture. In their minds, it was a clever and practical solution supported by the best sanitation knowledge available at the time. Of course, today we understand disease transmission very differently, and the thought of sharing a bathroom sponge with strangers is difficult to even imagine. But for the Romans, this was simply another example of communal life and advanced plumbing working hand in hand. And if their bathroom habits raise an eyebrow, the foods they considered luxurious and impressive might surprise you even more. Flamingo tongue dining. Roman elite dining was as much about status as it was about taste. At lavish banquets, wealthy hosts served rare and unusual foods to demonstrate power and sophistication. Among these delicacies were flamingo tongues, prized not for flavor, but for the prestige that came with offering something so rare and extravagant. Other dishes included stuffed dormice, peacock, and even jellyfish, each chosen to signal wealth and access to exotic ingredients. To the upper class, food was a way to convey influence and cultural refinement. Securing rare animals from across the empire showed reach and authority, and guests were meant to leave impressed not only by the meal itself, but by the host's ability to provide it. It may sound extravagant to the point of absurdity today, but in their world, luxury dining was a social and political tool, reinforcing hierarchy at every table. Eating was not simply nourishment, it was theater. And while their dining habits were unusual, their beauty routines may be even more surprising, especially what they believed could enhance complexion and vitality. Gladiator sweat beauty rituals. In the Roman world, gladiators represented strength, vitality, and physical excellence. Because bodily fluids were believed to carry a person's life force, some Romans, especially women, purchased mixtures made from gladiator sweat and scraped oils collected from the arena floor. These were applied to the face as a cosmetic and even worn as a type of perfume, with the hope that the fighter's vigor and attractiveness might somehow transfer to the wearer. To them, this practice sat at the intersection of medicine, superstition, and beauty culture. The arena was not only a place of entertainment, but also a source of supposed vitality enhancing substances. Roman physicians and beauty attendants promoted these products sincerely, believing they tapped into the power of heroic masculinity. Today, the idea of using sweat as skincare feels decidedly unappealing. But in their time, this was considered an exclusive and luxurious treatment. Strength, beauty, and success were deeply valued, and if a product promised to offer even a hint of those qualities, it found eager buyers. And if the lengths they went to for beauty seem intense, their approach to punishment and public spectacle shows an even more dramatic side of Roman life. The seesaw execution. Public punishment in Rome was designed not only to penalize criminals, but also to reinforce social order and entertain the crowd. One particularly striking method involved tying two condemned individuals to opposite ends of a large wooden plank, suspended like a seesaw. A hungry wild animal, often a lion, was then released into the arena. When the animal attacked the person on the lower end, the weight shift would send the other victim downward, forcing them to face the same fate in turn. To Roman audiences, this blend of punishment and theater demonstrated the consequences of crime. While satisfying the appetite for dramatic spectacle, mercy was not the aim. The display served as a reminder of state power and the harsh reality awaiting those who defied the law. To modern sensibilities, it is difficult to imagine violence incorporated so casually into public entertainment. For the Romans, however, such events were part of daily life, woven into civic gatherings and celebrations. And astonishingly, this was not even their harshest punishment. The Romans reserved an even more extreme fate for those who committed the most serious crime of all. Poenaculae, the sack of angry animals. Among Rome's harshest punishments was the poenaculae, reserved specifically for those convicted of killing a parent. Rather than execution alone, the Romans believed such a crime disrupted the natural order so profoundly that a symbolic and extraordinary penalty was required. The condemned person was sewn inside a leather sack along with a collection of live animals, often including a dog, a snake, a monkey, and a rooster, and then thrown into a body of water. Each animal was chosen for symbolic reasons. The dog represented loyalty betrayed, the snake treachery, the rooster watchfulness, and the monkey human mockery. By surrounding the offender with these creatures, the Romans believed they were marking the individual as someone who had violated the most fundamental of social bonds. To us, the punishment feels surreal and terrifying, but in Rome, it reinforced the sacred duty of family loyalty and the seriousness of dishonoring parents. It was as much a moral statement as it was a sentence. And while this punishment shows the extreme side of Roman justice, Roman warfare had its own share of surprising and unconventional tactics as well. Flaming war pigs. Warfare in the ancient world often required creative solutions, and the Romans were no strangers to unconventional tactics. When facing enemy war elephants, which could scatter infantry lines and cause chaos, they sometimes turned to an unexpected strategy: pigs. It was known that elephants were frightened by the sound of squealing pigs, so pigs were sent toward the enemy lines to disrupt the advancing animals. In particularly desperate situations, these pigs were even set alight to heighten the noise and panic. The logic, while unsettling, was grounded in practical battlefield observation. Elephants, despite their size and strength, could not handle the sound or sight of distressed pigs and would often turn and stampede back through their own ranks, breaking formations and turning advantage into disorder. To modernize this method feels harsh and chaotic, but for Roman commanders, it demonstrated adaptability and the willingness to use every available resource in pursuit of victory. And while this insight into Roman warfare is surprising, their political leadership could be just as unconventional, especially when one emperor developed a fondness for a very unusual advisor: Caligula and his horse. The Emperor Caligula is remembered for behavior that deeply unsettled Roman society, and one of the most famous examples involves his horse. Incitatus Caligula reportedly provided the horse with a marble stable, ivory feed trough, purple blankets, and even servants to attend him. Ancient writers also claim that Caligula planned to elevate Incitatus to the position of consul, the highest political office beneath the emperor. Although historians debate whether he truly intended to appoint the horse or simply made the threat, the gesture served a symbolic purpose. Many believe Caligula used this display to mock the Senate, suggesting that even a horse could govern as effectively as Rome's political elite, or at the very least to demonstrate that his power was so absolute he could do as he pleased without challenge. To us, the story feels absurd, but to Romans, it represented the unsettling truth that imperial authority could overshadow tradition, logic, and the established political order. And Caligula was not the only ruler whose personal life shocked Rome. Another emperor would take the concept of unconventional relationships to a far more disturbing place: Nero and Sporus. Emperor Nero is known for dramatic and often troubling behavior, and one of the most striking examples involves a young boy named Sporus. After the death of his wife Poppaea, whom Nero was deeply attached to, he chose a boy who resembled her and had him castrated. Nero then publicly married Sporus, dressed him in royal women's clothing, and presented him to the court as an empress. To Nero, this act may have been a combination of grief, control, and an attempt to recreate what he had lost. Roman emperors held extraordinary authority over those around them, and this incident highlights both the personal power they wielded and the lack of limits placed upon imperial desires. Roman writers noted the ceremony with a mixture of astonishment and dismay, viewing it as evidence of Nero's instability. Modern readers understandably find this episode unsettling, but in Nero's Rome, it served as a reminder that imperial life could operate entirely outside ordinary social and moral boundaries. And if Nero's behavior reveals the extremes of imperial excess, the next emperor takes spectacle to a very different arena, quite literally. Commodus, the gladiator emperor. Emperor Commodus took imperial performance to unusual heights by choosing to participate personally in gladiatorial combat. Although the matches were carefully arranged to ensure his safety, the very idea of an emperor stepping into the arena shocked many. Romans. Gladiators were admired for their skill and toughness, but they also belonged to the lowest social class, and for an emperor to imitate them blurred the lines of Roman social order. Commodus staged hundreds of appearances, often fighting animals or opponents who were unable or forbidden to resist. He also demanded payment from the state for each appearance, placing a heavy financial strain on Rome simply to satisfy his desire for public admiration. In his mind, he was demonstrating strength and winning public favor. To many Romans, it suggested a ruler more interested in theatrics than governing. What seems like unusual behavior to us was viewed by his contemporaries as a dangerous departure from tradition and dignity. In time, this contributed to a declining respect for his rule and growing unrest within Rome. And while some emperors shocked the public with their personal choices, the wider culture could be just as surprising. One Roman festival in particular turned the entire social order upside down: Saturnalia, a world upside down. One of Rome's most beloved festivals was Saturnalia, a midwinter celebration that temporarily reversed the normal order of society. For several days, social rules relaxed, public feasting and gift-giving took place, and households adopted a ritual role reversal where slaves were served by their masters or allowed unusual freedoms. People wore festive clothing, sang in the streets, and embraced a spirit of mischief and goodwill. The festival honored the god Saturn and recalled an imagined golden age of equality and abundance. By temporarily suspending hierarchy, Romans believed they were acknowledging the importance of social harmony while also releasing tensions built up over the year. When Saturnalia ended, society returned to its structure, but the tradition served as a reminder that even the strict Roman system had room for celebration and inversion. To us, it may resemble a combination of holiday festivity and playful rebellion. For the Romans, it was a cherished cultural moment that balanced discipline with joy. And now that we have explored the stranger side of Rome, from unusual medicine to extravagant dining and surprising social customs, it becomes clear that behind the marble and monuments, there was always a very human and sometimes eccentric world at work. Until next time, stay curious, stay fascinated by the weird corners of history, and maybe take a moment to appreciate modern plumbing and toothpaste.